Namaste, Sakshi, Manasakshi. I am Priya Goteti. Welcome to Immigration Talk Show with Prashanthi Reddy from Law Offices of Prashanthi Reddy PLLC. Please note that now Sakshi TV has 5 immigration shows daily: Monday with Somi Reddy Law Firms, Tuesday with Kaveti Law Firms, Wednesday with Prashanthi Reddy, Thursday with Chand Parvataneni, and Friday with Banu Linder. Before we begin the show, please note that this information provided on this show is only for general purpose only, and Sakshi TV or its agents are not responsible for use of this information. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you are an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please contact usa@sakshi.com or call us at 866-725-7441. Prashanthi Reddy needs no introduction, but if you need any special legal advice, please reach out to reddyesq.com for any special attorney instructions or legal advice from Prashanthi Reddy. So without any further delay, let's start our show and welcome Prashanthi Reddy. Hi, Prashanthi Reddy garu, how are you?
Good, Andy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So today, like it's all election season and we got the election results. So today our topic is about possible impact of immigration rules and laws because of the election results. So the first question most of them would be having is like, what would be an impact on non-immigrant visa issuance?
Yes, so it's all not so good news. But I'm hoping that I'm wrong, and this time the Trump government will be more lenient towards immigration than they were in the previous term. But during his, when he was talking about the issues when standing for elections, he did say that he's going to be strict with immigration. He's going to do a lot of things. So they're not going to be lenient like the Democratic government, or rather, fair with immigration like the present government is. They're going to be strict. They're going to scrutinize the petitions more. So let's go into that a little bit more detail with reference to non-immigrant petitions. With reference to any non-immigrant petitions, I mean, last term, when he was in term last year, he basically issued an executive order 13788, Buy America and Hire American. So this was pretty much an executive order which informed all his agencies that they should encourage people, businesses to hire American people and not, immigrants or non-immigrants. And so, because as a result of this policy, in order to make this his agenda happen, they did scrutinize legal immigration as well. And H1B RFE rates were 30% denials. The denial rates were 30% when compared to 3% now. So you can see that the scrutiny on H1Bs, which is the main work visa that is used in the US for people who want to come to the US, it's a H1. They have L1, which is another work visa, and their TN is another work visa for Canadian nationals and Mexican nationals. So these are the main work visas that people use to come in and work in the US. And all these visas, and especially the H1, was scrutinized, and the approval rate was much lower than it presently is. They made life as difficult as possible. USCIS came up with ways and means of finding ways to deny cases, and because they cannot change the laws, so they have to, pass regulations or work within the network of laws that they have, and find ways of within the laws to deny cases. So in the last Trump term, they used the right to control, they used employer-employee relationship, they scrutinized specialty occupation for the H1, all this is, and denied cases based on that. They've also tried other ways of limiting the issuance of H1B approvals. They published a rule called the H1B visa wage rule, wherein the wages, for example, for a software engineer or a programmer analyst, would be double or 3 times what the wages are now, effectively stopping, people from even filing, because, only really experienced people will be able to file if your wage is 200,000 or 250,000. In the real world, not every software engineer gets 250,000, right? Very few do, in fact. So that is an effective way for them to stop people from even filing for H1s. This H1B visa wage rule was luckily struck down by the courts. So I think even in this, from the next year onwards, courts will have a very active role to play with reference to safeguarding the immigration laws and making sure people are not harmed by, the strict immigration rules that the Trump government comes up with. So the H-1B visa wage rule luckily was struck down, but it was struck down for procedural reasons by the court. And so as long as if they can correct those procedural reasons, those procedures and follow the proper procedures, I think the H-1B visa wage rule is going to come back. So this will limit people from filing H1s, and this is bad for the economy because there's so many jobs available, which we don't have enough US citizens and permanent residents to take these jobs, especially in the STEM area and in healthcare. Especially in the STEM area, those jobs will just be outsourced. And so this really hurts the economy for the US economy. In addition to what the government might do with reference to decreasing the approval rates of non-immigrant petitions. I think last time what they did is also increase scrutiny on green card applications. So family-based as well as employment-based green card applications, they sought to deny cases based on a new interpretation of the public charge law. So public charge law exists, it even exists now and it always has. Basically says that if you're likely to be a public charge or if you ever were a public charge, which means if you ever took money from the government, welfare, that kind of thing, then you're disqualified from getting a green card. So now the public charge law is a sensible law, which says that if you've taken money from the government for sustenance, or if you have been institutionalized, in a nursing home, long-term institutionalization at the expense of the government, then you're disqualified. But you're not disqualified simply because of other reasons, like maybe you took food stamps at some point, or you took low-income housing, or maybe you took health insurance, which is available for your child, free health insurance. So, right now, you cannot be denied because of that. But the Trump administration expanded that public charge law, and they said that even for other reasons, they expanded it. And so they said that even if you've taken other kinds of benefits which are otherwise eligible for, you can still get a denial on your green card. So this is something that luckily was passed, and then someone filed a lawsuit, and then it was put on hold again. And when the present government came, they basically did away with it. So that's another thing that the Trump government could do if he comes back into power. Use the public charge rule to kind of decrease the amount of green card approvals also. He's also talking about completely removing family-based immigration. He's talked about removing family-based immigration and replacing it with a merit-based immigration system. So family unity, keeping the family together is no longer a priority, as per at least what he has said in the past. And so if you have a US citizen, a spouse cannot bring their spouse to the US, cannot bring your parents, cannot bring your children. You have to only go based on the merit-based immigration, which is kind of like a point-wise system that Canada uses, and we don't know what the criteria will be for those points. Who can get the points, on what basis you'll get the points, how many points are needed, etc., etc. He's also talking about removing birthright citizenship completely. So now it's in the Constitution. If you're born in the US, then you are a US citizen. He wants to remove that, but of course, that will take Some doing, because then you have to change the laws, and that's only possible if he has control of both the House and the Senate. We don't know at this point where he stands with that. We know that the Republicans have control in the Senate, but they don't yet have control of the House. So let's wait and watch what happens with reference to that. Over to you.
Mhm. So, like we discussed on impact on green cards and what would be the processing time?
Processing time for these green cards, as well as we're talking about legal immigration only now, but processing time for um, all these cases could increase. The reason I'm saying that is under the previous, again, Trump administration, backlogs became really, really bad for USCIS because they were strapped of funds. They were not hiring people, officers who were needed to do the job. So they were short-staffed. And the priority was not, the USCIS priority became enforcement, which is actually not what they're supposed to be doing. ICE is supposed to be doing enforcement. And USCIS is actually a benefits organization, benefits body, which gives benefits like green cards, H1s, to its stakeholders. But it became an enforcement wing rather than a benefits wing. So there was very little money. Backlogs were severely increased for H1s as well as for green cards. So I mean, I'm thinking more of the same, and I'll be happy if it doesn't happen that way again. But uh, Trump has come on the mandate that he's going to restrict immigration. So I'm presuming he's going to do that if he's able to.
So there would be any changes in other immigration policies?
So with reference to other immigration policies, I mean, again, based on his mandate, based on what he has been saying to voters, he's talked about mass deportations. He wants to deport all undocumented aliens, and there are about 11 million or more undocumented aliens in the US. Uh, and this is almost impossible to do. Um, and it's, the critics think that it's extremely expensive, it's a waste of resources, waste of taxpayers' money, and also not practical to do. And the second thing, more importantly, is that there is a security risk, in ICE coming to offices, ICE coming to, your apartment buildings, coming to schools, and trying to do mass deportations will just make the regular people feel very insecure. And it's a really bad situation where you see families separated from each other. Nobody wants to see that. So it's going to almost be, I mean, history has many incidents where that has happened, and it has never gone well. So hopefully that won't happen and he does not try to do that. But mass deportation is definitely something that he wants to do. I mean, this is not only inhumane, it's also a violation of due process, violation of the Constitution, um, forget about the trauma that it will cause to the people witnessing it and also the people that are undergoing it, right? And this has never been US policy to, try to do mass deportations. Also, he wants to, as part of that, use military for immigration enforcement. This is also going to be really bad because once the military gets involved, uh, basically what you're saying is that these undocumented aliens are a security risk. They are not a security risk. They're simply undocumented. So right now, the police also is not involved because it's not a crime, right? It's an immigration crime, but it's not a crime, where the cops have to get involved. So it's different. So right now, ICE officers are the ones who take care of enforcement. ICE is basically an enforcement wing of US of the immigration of US Department of Homeland Security. So forget about military. Even the police doesn't get involved. Now he wants to get thousands of troops involved. Can you imagine thousands of troops marching across our streets trying to deport people? That is really scary. It'll become less of a democracy and more like an autocracy. So this whole idea that undocumented aliens are a security risk is not tenable, and is very bad for morale again. And the military has never been involved with immigration enforcement. Also, he wants to include workplace raids. So this is basically sending ICE officers or whoever is the police or ICE officers to companies where they are undocumented immigrants are usually hired. This could be agricultural workers, maybe workers in the service industry. Now, trying to deport 11 million people at one time will cause a vacuum in the American workforce, and this will this will cause significant labor market shifts, and it's not going to help anyone. This will disrupt local economies, of course, install fear within immigrant communities, right? Because they'll take action first and ask questions later. Even if you're in status, they might just round you up because of the way you look, or the way you speak, the way you look, etc., etc. So this will just result in an environment of mistrust and leave immigrants, afraid to even report crimes because they'll be afraid of being deported. That's why police have never been involved in immigration enforcement. He wants to, of course, expand the border. He's built 500 miles of border in his last term. The entire US-Mexico border, the southern border, is about 2,000 miles long. And it's not viable, and it doesn't make sense to build a physical barrier. And it's not always people can easily cross a physical barrier. So that doesn't really help in stopping people from coming into the US, because people come where there's no barrier, and it's not possible to build a barrier across the entire border. That's millions of miles, right? So at least thousands of miles. So and also there are many places where you cannot build a barrier because of the terrain. And it's, again, in my opinion, a waste of taxpayers' money. So, and the resources that USCIS has, which is already very limited. So, in order to stop illegal immigrants from coming to the US, there are other deterrents that should be used rather than building a wall. So, and this has always been a matter of debate as to, what to do. Every government has faced this problem as to, how to stop undocumented aliens from coming into the US. And every government has done different things with reference to this. But penalizing, separating families may not be the answer, because it is inhumane. So these are a few things that he's doing. Also, what he did in his last, when he was last president, was he did a travel ban for people from all the major Muslim countries. This was the first time ever this was done, and we're expecting that he'll do it again. So he said in his October campaign mandate that he will reinstate and expand the travel ban for Muslim countries. So basically, he will not allow people from Muslim countries to get visas. He will send his agents to, demonstrations, say Gaza demonstration or program, something like that, wherever, there are demonstrations, and he'll pick up people who are maybe demonstrating in the favor of maybe Muslim countries, and disqualify them from getting a green card, maybe. So this is again untenable, and again a violation of their rights. So, and violation of their freedom of speech, really. So this is a little scary, and he can actually do this within the four corners of the law without having to change the law. And that's a little scary because this is most likely going to happen. So these are a few things that people expect him to do after he comes to the office with relation to immigration.
So coming back to the H1 wage limits, so if it's like 200K to 50K per annum, like you said, there would be like very few employees who would be getting it. So then what happens to all the H1 holders or L1 holders who are in this US currently working? So they
If
would be like,
right. I think if they're currently working, I don't know if this law will be retroactive. If it's retroactive, everyone will have to refile their H1 with a new LCA. I hope that it's not, but if it only exists for people when you're filing the petition, either a new petition or maybe it'll also exist for extension petitions, people will find it difficult to extend their petition if this happens. So you pretty much effectively shutting down the H1B program because, as I said, nobody makes that kind of money. So let's wait and see what happens. But if he does it to the fullest extent that he intends to do it, then it's going to be really bad for immigration, for the economy. But of course, we have the courts. The courts are our last line of defense. And I'm expecting there'll be a lot of litigation with reference to Trump's policies. But of course, even the courts now, there are a lot of judges that are Republican, and they may not all, make decisions in favor of, common sense immigration law. So let's wait and see. It's all up in the air.
so what happens to the dependent visas like H4, H4 EADs or green card EADs?
Right. So nothing, I mean, H4 EADs, you have to understand, are at risk because H4 EADs was done by USCIS. It's not part of the Immigration and Nationality Act. They have the right to pass a regulation to do it, and they have done that. But even last time when Trump was in office, he filed a lawsuit against H4, or his proxies filed a lawsuit against H4 EADs. And luckily, the lawsuit didn't, because it was done towards the end maybe of his time in office. And when the new government came in, they pretty much didn't pursue that lawsuit. But if it is pursued, he will most probably pursue it this time to remove H4 dependent EADs. We have to see in court how it plays out, whether court decides that USCIS has the authority to do it, or they don't have the authority to do it. Or USCIS could itself revoke that regulation by passing a new regulation. So we have to wait and see what happens. But that can be done since it was not even done with a law in the first place. It can be easily removed just the way that it was, started in the first place. So we have to wait and see, I guess.
Seems like a tough time to all the immigrants because
Yes.
of immigration
Yes,
rule changes.
right. I hope it doesn't happen quickly. It takes its time to do it, and by then, 4 years are over. I also hope that the courts, people file litigation, and the courts help us to keep some semblance of order in the immigration system, so that it doesn't completely break down. Last time also we saw asylum was completely zero. There were no asylum cases being approved, even though there is an asylum law in place. Enforcement skyrocketed. So everything kind of became very difficult for immigrants, even legal immigrants. And that's what, we're concerned about.
Thank you so much, Prashanthi, for sharing all your valuable information about all the immigration rules that possibly could change. So once again, thank you. And this is Priya Goteti signing off.
Thank you.